But my name is Bobby Heron, and I work for Zema Automotive. I'm a private consultant for the automotive industry. I'm not going to put you guys through a whole bunch of background. I'm not going to pitch anything why we're in here. This is a topic that I work with a lot of clients on that causes a lot of confusion in our industry and puts us out there for a lot of lawsuits. So it's not the most popular thing to talk about, and normally my sessions are pretty funny. This one's going to be a little more serious because we're going to cover a lot of ground, and we'll take questions at the end. If you did not get a chance to put your business card in for the drawing, just let us know before Ashley leaves, and she'll take care of that for you. She's the pretty blonde girl in the front here. All right. Let's get started. Now, as a policy, whenever I speak, my computer crashes, so I'm typically winging it all the time. So this time, we're not going to have a lot of different videos, but I'm going to play one for you real quick because I want to talk about the importance that we have here. All right. So let me go back here. And in typical digital dealer fashion, I'm going to play it from you from the other screen since my AV just went out. Are you fixing that right now? You're just touching the one that controls it? Okay. Yeah, hold on one second. This won't be the first time that we've had to do this. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do is just skip that video. That's not going to be a thing today. All right. No, it won't play from the other screen either. Do you have any ideas for making it just play? Huh? I just tried that. It won't play on the screen. But in true fashion, I have a technical difficulty every time I do this. So we don't really need to see the video to understand the importance of what texting is. If you do get a chance, though, you should Google this video. It's actually an ad campaign by an automotive dealer that they ran in a movie theater. And what they did is they collected everybody's text information when the people walked into the movie theater. And then while you were waiting for the movie to begin, they played it. It looked just like somebody driving on a screen. And then all of a sudden, a huge crash in the 2 seconds that a text went off onto somebody's phone. The importance of it being that people will risk their lives to check a text message. 1 in 4 people are killed every day from checking text messages while they drive. And yet we still all do it because it's the way that we prefer to communicate now, right? We want to sell things that way. We want to talk that way. We actually consume all information now in 160 characters or less all of the time. So if you think about Twitter or you think about email, even when you email something to somebody now, if you send a 3-paragraph email, nobody's reading it. They're reading it and consuming it through small characters. Small amounts of information. Give you the legal disclaimer up front. I am not a lawyer, okay? That's not a thing. I didn't take the bar. I should have, but I didn't. But I tell you that for this reason. I spent 6 years with an automotive group, Garber Automotive. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them. But for the last 3 years, we got to hang out with these really expensive, high-priced attorneys and fight over texting. So I work with a lot of clients who come to me and say, well, is it legal for me to do this? I heard at my 20 group that I could do this. The problem is nobody's really out there telling you exactly what you can and can't do, and so that's what we're going to cover today, okay? Starting with, did you know? So did you know that 95 to 98% of texts are read immediately? In any type of marketing or conversation or communication, it's the easiest, quickest, and most effective way to get a response from a consumer, right? 65% of smartphone owners check their phone when they wake up. So if the first thing you do when you wake up is check your phone, raise your hand for me. Isn't that crazy? Like, I don't even stand in the gas station anymore for 5 seconds without checking my phone, right? It's an immediate thing. The problem with it is that it happens so naturally that when I just ask you a question like, do you text, you immediately go, yes. But then we say things like, I can text my neighbor on a car deal. He's not going to tell on me. You're going to tell on somebody because you don't know you're not supposed to, right? That's a huge part of it. Text messages are opened at a 95% rate versus everything else. And it happens quickly, right? The way that we do that. So let's go into the changes in the law. So in 2013, October 2013, one thing changed in the law, and it was the part that says that you have to opt in without somebody sending something to you. So what I mean by that is you can no longer say, hey, we did business with this person, so it's legal. I sold them a car 3 years ago, and under this law, no, it's not. That's not a thing. So if you're texting inside of your store, or if you're a business to business, if you're a vendor and you're texting, any of those things put you at risk, right? So this one word changed everything in the policy. The problem was it was such a gray area, it was so murky that nobody really knew what it meant. The last automotive lawsuit for texting was before this law, and it was Lithia. Since this law has changed, a ton of industries have gotten in trouble for texting just any person at any time without even realizing it could be a problem. Okay? So let's take a look at this conversation because this is what I hear commonly. But Bobby, this is so normal. So this conversation here, hey John, Bobby Heron here at Rockstar Motors. Hi, thanks, do you have any photos of the Ford? Yeah, we should have them Thursday, I can text them to you. That'd be great, do you have anything else that's in that price range? I'll check. Would you agree that this is a conversation that could happen inside of a store very easily? Right? Happens all day long. And if you think that it's not happening in your store or you're not participating in it, you're wrong. I can guarantee you that it occurs, right? The biggest CRMs in the industry have opt-in for texting. But did you know that if you have one of those and you manually opted in, you agreed to a disclaimer that says you're liable and that it's illegal? So how many people in the room have VIN Solutions as a CRM? Okay, what about DealerSocket? Dude, you guys gotta upgrade your CRMs. No. I use those two because they're one of the two main ones, and they have manual opt-ins. So people think if I'm texting from my CRM, or if I bought a third-party product, which, by the way, I don't sell a texting product. I'm not here to pitch you. This is a huge exposure and a huge liability, right? So let's talk about what that looks like. Okay, what does that conversation cost you? What's the ROI on it? So you must have prior written consent. That means that a customer either signed a form saying that it was okay for you to text them, and the number you'll be texting from is on it, or that means that you double opted in online. So if you have a website, Garber Text is a good one, textgarber.com, is a website that you can go on and text in for this particular dealership. That doesn't require the same type of opt-in as it does when you're using a company. I would challenge you that if you're working with anybody that is a texting vendor, and some are great and some aren't, to say just these following words. Are you willing to put in writing that if I get sued over the first opt-in, that you're liable? And if they tell you no, you should probably be concerned that their corporate attorneys didn't agree to that, right? I won't give you who's the best and who's not. I'm happy to have a private conversation about that, but it's different for everybody. All right, let's take a look at this conversation. This is the one I hear about the most. Hey, Bobby, I think I'm ready to look at a car. Hey, neighbor, ready to replace the one I sold you last year? I'm ready to look at options. Sounds like we need a third row. New or used? Well, I've got some rebates. I'm open. People always say to me, but it's my neighbor, but it's my friend, but it's my sister. I'm allowed to text them. If you've ever gotten a letter in the mail from Sprint for a class action lawsuit, looks like a little note card, super tricky, right? It says something like, hey, did you have a Sprint phone between 2006 and 2008? Oh, you did? Great, pop onto this website for me real quick. And the minute enough people go to that website, you just opened yourself up to a class action lawsuit where all of your records can be subpoenaed. And everybody's so good about putting in their CRM, right? Oh, I'm texting back and forth with the customer, nothing like some evidence just laying around, right? Once you do that, and you say, oh, my neighbor wouldn't tell on me, what about your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's husband who didn't know that it wasn't a thing and put their name in? It only takes one ambulance chasing attorney, just one, to find out that you've texted one customer for you to be the broadcast of our industry, to be the example. Nobody wants to be the example in this situation. All right, there is no exception for prior business. It doesn't matter if you sold them 14 cars and it was yesterday. You don't have permission to text them. The reason this law was changed was because of the data rate messages that people were getting charged on, right? Most of us look at our phone and say, well, we have unlimited data, or we have unlimited text messaging, so it's not a big deal. But the federal government has programs in place where people get free phones, and they don't have free data messaging. So that's an issue, right? And that's one of the reasons the law was changed. All right, let's talk about what that conversation cost. So the minimum per text bubble is $500. The maximum is $1,500 per bubble. So this little conversation with the neighbor, $4,500. I don't know about you guys, I sell cars every day. My gross doesn't look like that anymore. I don't think this conversation is worth it. And I'm not saying don't text your customers. That would be crazy. We just talked about the open rates. What I'm saying to you is text your customers legally. Put a policy in place with the salespeople and the people in your store that says that they understand that they are not to use their cell phones. I'll tell you a secret about cell phones with texting is that even if you have a texting app in your store, you're gonna find that your salespeople, yourself, whoever it is, I don't know what your roles are in the store, whoever that is that's texting, isn't texting the customer because the customer wants to text. They're texting the customer because they want to text. Because if that wasn't the case, then they would use the apps that are on the market, right? You would go into your CRM or you would use one of these apps and you would text from there and the customer would still feel like they had the same level of conversation and communication. But the reality is we want to do that too. And that's where the exposure lies for stores. It's not the knowing, it's the doing that becomes the problem. This is a $4,500 conversation. This happens 10 to 15 times a day in every store. I'm in dealerships every day, all month, every day, boots on the ground, working with people. And this is something I see every day, especially when the salespeople don't know. As a matter of fact, if you go back to the store or to your business, if you're a vendor, if you're a dealer, and you just say, without any, like you're not trying to trick anybody, you're just trying to expose a problem that you have that you need to fix. So if you go back and you say something simple like, hey, have you texted back and forth with anybody the last couple days? Like, I heard that's like a 95% open rate. They'd be the first ones to raise their hand like, yes, I have. I've done it 15 times. Awesome. That's like $100,000. That's not what we're trying to do here, right? So how many of you have a texting policy in your store? Very good. Awesome. In that policy, do you tell your people that if they're caught texting that they're terminated? Yeah, right? I have people say to me all the time, they sell 30 cars a month. Great, that means they're having 100 text conversations and you could lose your business, right? Now your kid doesn't go to college. Now your employees are gone over texting. That's crazy. Let's talk a little bit about how to opt in. There's a couple different ways, but I'm gonna give you the most basic and it's called a double opt-in. So what that means is, for example, if you have Vin as your CRM, what'll happen is a customer will text to you, right? And then you'll send a message back, they'll give a positive response, and then it's approved. Here's how this works. If you've been in a restaurant or a Charlotte Russe or in the mall lately, anywhere really, you see all those little signs that say text yes to 54321. Has everybody seen those? Right, they don't really want to give you 20% off. That's to opt you in, right? And so when you text them first, that keeps you legal, right? That's the first one. Now a message has to come back that says, hey, just so you know, here's how you opt out, and data messages can apply, right? Charges can apply to that. That's a double opt-in. The customer then has to give a positive response. That's what you have to do to stay legal. That's not an easy thing to do. It's hard to keep track of. That's why there's so many companies out there offering it, right? Now, the law is still a bit unclear. Last year, they came out with a 156-page document to explain the original 30-page document. That's how murky this is. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen a dealership win in court even when they should have. So that's not something that we can mess around with. A website also requires a double opt-in. And if you are using your texting for marketing, that's a continuity one. You have to say how many messages are left. If you have a 15-message text stream going out over the next month, it has to say 1 out of 15, 2 out of 15, 3 out of 15. If you don't have that in there, you're breaking the law, okay? This is a class action lawsuit. The things that you have to follow in order to be under this law are a reference to an SMS campaign name, meaning if you're gonna do marketing, give it a name and how many messages it'll have, just share it with the customer. Besides, everybody likes to have an expectation set. I don't know about you, but I can take on a lot as long as you tell me what I'm dealing with in the beginning. You're like, oh, the building is gonna crash. I'm like, perfect, I'm gonna be across the street. Like, everybody knows what they can do, right? The accessible terms and conditions is a big one, as well as the duration messaging and the disclaimer charges, right? It sounds pretty basic, but I can tell you of a case study that I did in the last year of over 114 dealerships, not one was following the law. And those are some really good groups, but you don't know what you don't know. You go to a 20 group and everybody talks about, hey, what's this whole thing with texting? Or, oh, you're covered if you do this one thing. But none of the people sitting in that room also went to a class or sat with the attorneys to do it typically. It's like that kindergarten game you play where you put the cup up against somebody's ear and you whisper a message and they whisper it to the next one and the next one. And by the time they get to the last one, it doesn't even say the same thing anymore, right? Have you guys tried this recently? This is a great team bonding exercise for meetings, so keep that in mind. All right. Let's talk about identifying who your audience is. So now that we've talked about what we can't do, let's talk a little bit about what you can do. All right. When you look at what you're doing in your text policies, right, and what you're doing in your store, how many of you are using texting just as a means of communication in the sales drive instead of just the service drive? Is anybody doing the service drive right now? Awesome. Okay. What about marketing? Are you doing any marketing on texting? Okay, great. So before we go forward, I'm going to do something, most speakers will wait to the end to have questions, but I think that this policy is really important and I don't want anything to get lost in it. So before we go into some of the marketing techniques that you can use and still be legal, does anybody have any questions on how that policy works? You guys are all super informed? That's awesome. That's fantastic. This is like the most serious class I've ever had. That's never a thing for me. Potential business. So if you don't have something built into your CRM right now or within your store that breaks these things out by segments, so I put these up there so that if you want to do a camera shot, you can, but you should have a different policy in place for each one of these things, right? So you have incoming business and then you have outgoing business. What's your policy on bringing people in? Do you have it set up that when an internet opportunity, I don't like the word lead, internet opportunity comes into your system, do you have it segmented somewhere in there to say this is what we follow for texting a customer? Because if you're just hitting a button inside of a CRM or if you're just sending an email that says, hey, do you want to text, that's not going to work. Basic suggestions though, some things that work really well, take the bottom of your signature line in all of your emails and in your CRM and add your text in number. Text yes. If you prefer to communicate by text, please text yes to this number. If you don't have a 5-digit number, it's an easy one to obtain. You can also have it come to a regular one, right? But have that be there so that you're giving the customer the opportunity to communicate with you the way that they want to and not the way that you want to, okay? There's a lot of things out there that are apps that give the salesperson the ability to download an app onto their cell phone so they also feel like they're texting, right? So that you don't have that going back and forth. For a walk-in customer, a phone up, friends and family, or marketing campaigns, make sure that you're putting the numbers in that let them know, here's 1 out of 15, here's 2 out of 15, here's 3. But give them a strong call to action in each thing because you don't want somebody to opt out, right? I'm a big fan of DSW. Huge. Love shoes. It's a big problem, right? And they text me like 5 times a day with marketing campaigns. So I unsubscribe from them, right? I want to go there. Actually went there Saturday, bought 7 pairs of shoes, and wished I still had the coupon. Didn't have it. But it's inconvenient to see things come through 100 times a day, so it can't be the only way that you talk to people, okay? Existing customers. If you have somebody coming into your service drive and you're not using texting right now legally to communicate with them, it's a huge mistake. Huge mistake. We think about what somebody is doing in a 5-minute time span and how quickly their day changes. And I'm available right now, but 20 minutes from now when I walk out of this room, I might think I can have a conversation with you and then somebody interrupts it and something else happens, right? So in that 5-minute time, something changed in my day and all of a sudden I'm not available. Service drives are a huge opportunity for declined business to be turned around using texting, as long as it's legal. Now here's the catch with service. You don't have to have a double opt-in because you're not selling them anything. You're servicing their vehicle, right? Do I think you should? Yeah. I love disagrees. Yeah. The minute you start to upsell, that's when it becomes sales, right? Right, it's to upsell. Right, just roll with it. So you can use text communication. So I'm really glad you brought that up, actually. I love that challenge. So let's say I have a customer that comes into the service drive, right? And they're coming in for some warranty work. And let's say I've got a recall on a transmission part. So they're going to come in and work on the car. I want to have my updates on when the car is done and when it's not by text. But if my first text that goes to the customer says something like, I want to talk to you about the vehicle and what state it's in, I'd prefer to text you. Do you prefer to text? Yes, I do. Great, I'm going to have to grab an opt-in from you right now. Now when I go to upsell, no problem with being able to do that, right? It is a fine, blurry line with service. The minute you start selling something to the customer, you absolutely have to have an opt-in. But if you're just giving feedback on what's happening on the car or declined work that had happened earlier in the day or a time before, you can communicate it that way. My recommendation to stores, though, is to say get one cell phone for the service drive and let that be the phone that you use. Don't let people text from their personal cell phones anyways. It makes me crazy. I don't understand that in a store. Like, even if I'm your best salesperson, if I'm working on a car deal over and over again by text, and then something happens where you fire me tomorrow, you just let me walk away with your client base. I didn't even have to download it from a CRM. I know the whole deal, and when I go into the next dealership, I'm still gonna sell that person a car because dealerships don't sell cars, people do. Dealerships are just buildings, right? That's never easy for people to hear when I say it, but it's the truth. There's not anything that you can do that your competitor can't do except for hire the right people and deliver an outstanding experience. So letting them text from their cell phone on a car deal or in service is a huge issue. Don't do that. Don't let them do that, okay? Most of the stores I walk into have those giant iPads everywhere that they got from the OEM like 5 years ago that are sitting on the stands that nobody can find the charger for. You can download like a Kik Messenger on there. Like you can put something on there that they can text from and it's free and you have a copy of it. Best practice is just send it into your CRM. Right? So that you've got it there. The other thing with having it happen in a CRM or in an app is, in order to stay legal, you have to keep a record of it. So show me again how many people have apps in here for texting. Right? so website too. Imagine you hire somebody, you hire a company, right? Maybe one of the companies that you see here to look at texting apps for you, right? Because now you know you're doing it illegally. So you hire a company. Do you think if you fire that company next year that they're going to just hold on to your records for you? Probably not. I would imagine not. I won't say that everyone wouldn't, because there's a lot of people with really great character and integrity out there, but even sometimes they don't know. You have to keep the records for 2 years after you do it. After you start texting somebody, it's 2 years. So if you don't have a policy in your store right now to add that in, put it in the policy. 1, no texting from your cell phone. 2, double opt-in is required. 3, sign the policy and be willing to fire the person who breaks it. Okay, I know that's scary to say I'd fire my 30 car a month guy or my 30 car a month girl, but $1 million, that's not a lot of money when it comes to a lawsuit like this. There is a company called Papa John's. Are you guys familiar? It's a pizza place. So a year and a half ago, Papa John's was sending out marketing messages, right? Just like DSW was doing, only they weren't getting an opt-in. They were just sued, and the person won. The class action lawsuit won for over $250 million. They're not like a Burger King or a big franchise. I mean, they are a big franchise, but they're not like Starbucks. That's how quickly that money adds up, right? And one of the things they got in trouble for was not keeping the records of opt-ins. That's how easy it is. If you've got a CRM, attach it inside of the CRM so you always have it. Nominate somebody in your store to be your texting like champion, right? To be the person that addresses this on all levels. And make sure it's somebody who's not gonna leave or who can be trusted if they do leave, because that opportunity is there for a lawsuit and it's huge. All right, let's talk a little bit about strategy. So only about 10% of messages that come through as text messaging are considered to be spam. That's it, 10%. Because the way that we consume data now is so quick and so real that even when somebody spams us through text, we almost always still open it. Almost every single time, right? I'm one of those people who can't handle the little red dots on my screen. Makes me crazy. So I'm like, there's a red dot, I need to open that right now, even if I'm not gonna read it. Not a good plan. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. This is, if a missed call is the new voicemail, is a text the new email? So have you guys heard this, the missed call is the new voicemail? How many of you check your voicemail messages? Right? Like mine's at 100% all the time. People are like, Bobby, your voicemail's full. I'm like, I know, stop leaving them for me. Clearly I don't listen to them. It's a bad plan. You should just text me instead, right? But people aren't opening emails anymore, they're opening texts. So when you're putting these strategies into place, it's not enough to say you don't know. It's one thing to be compliant. It's another thing to be able to elicit a call to action or engage a consumer. That's the difference. I always joke when I teach lead handling classes and when I talk about customer service, there's an activity that we always share. I'll give it to you guys the same way so that you can use it in texting. You want to be my guinea pig? Good. Do you like the color red? Do you like the color blue? Do you think the sky is pretty? Would you eat a dead squirrel from the middle of the road? That's gross, right? Why'd you answer that? Right, because your entire life you were taught it's polite to ask a question, and when you ask one, it's polite to answer, right? Your whole life people are like, look at me when I talk to you. I asked you a question, right? Like, answer it. Really simple strategy, end everything with a question, email or a text. Keep it short, put it there. People will feel compelled to respond to you. Just do it legally, okay? All right, SMS campaigns have over 7 times greater performance. I don't want you to feel like I'm beating that into you, and if you're saying to yourself in your head right now, oh, I knew that, but have you done anything with the information, right? Only 2 people in this room have a texting app right now. That's it, in this entire room. Actually, only 4 people in the room raised their hand for a CRM that has a texting policy in place inside of it. If you take nothing away from this session other than don't get sued, you need to go back with a policy and you need to enforce it, right? These are huge missed opportunities. We spend hundreds of $1,000s of marketing money every month to bring people into a business, to not communicate with them the way that they want to, and then to not give them what they need to choose us, right? That's a problem. All right, if you apply techniques for marketing, it will contribute to up to a 40% growth. I intentionally did not use my own stats in these. I'm a big believer that 90% of statistics are made up on the spot. So instead I use stuff that could be referenced. You guys can have a copy of these slides if you want. You can see the resources down in the bottom right corner. These are not just from automotive. These are from customer experience companies, which is what we miss in our industry. It's where we miss business every single day, right? you can look at texting opportunities with an opt-in and see a 17% growth over 4 to 6 months without a problem. We do it in my clients all the time, okay? Loyalty clubs for service. Do any of you have loyalty clubs for service right now? You do? Perfect. So keep in mind that a loyalty club, even though you're not selling something, technically, you're giving them the opportunity to buy something, usually using a percentage off or some kind of point system. That does fall under the law that you have to be able to have that opt-in in there, okay? One of the things I suggest to people is that in every interaction with a customer, write out a form, right? Grab a form. There's tons of them online. They're pretty easy, right? You have to tell the customer that there's messaging rates that apply. You have to have the same phone number. So for example, if I say to you, can I text you? And you write down yes, and I write in the store number, that does not mean I can text you. It means that phone number can text you, right? So you have to have more than one in place, which is why I tell you don't let your salespeople use their cell phones to text people, okay? If you use one number, you'll be covered, or put a form in place that has room for 5 or 6 numbers and have the customer initial next to it and sign on the bottom, okay? If they do that, you're also covered. All right. Going back. This thing hates me. Okay, let me put this down real quick. The opt-in policy being in writing is huge, but so is the proof process. What if a customer says, I didn't sign that? You think you're going to win in court if they didn't sign it? Tell everybody all the time, have your receptionist, your office manager, your controller notarized, your sales manager. It's like $100 to notarize somebody to sign something. Have them notarized. They should be notarized anyways. They're signing contracts with people all the time, right? Get them notarized so that when somebody signs a physical form and you're keeping proof of it, you have it. When you get a chance, look at the website. It's texgarber.com. This is something that we put into place prior to the law being really defined. And prior to there being not even one company on the market that would say that they would take the liability for that first text. Now, if you participate in third-party apps, third-party platforms, things like AutoTrader, Cars.com, you'll notice at the bottom for the leads, it does say right at the bottom that there's permission to text them, right? So let's see. If I go on and I put on a lead for AutoTrader, I'm the customer, and I fill in my information, and on the bottom it says I'm giving permission to text, right? And then I send you it as a store. Is it legal? No, because it doesn't pass over, right? But if you ask those companies, most of them will tell you that it's there so that you're covered, but they will not give you they won't sign the form that says that they're liable in the first instance. That's not a judgment call. I wouldn't sign it either. It's illegal. I don't blame them for not doing it. But if you don't put a policy in that covers those things as well, then you could have a salesperson at the labor board say something like, well, I got fired over this and I didn't even know it was a thing. And you'll lose at the labor board over that. That will be an issue, right? So have that as a take back. In your CRMs, get on the phone and find out not only what they are compliant on, but get a process in there, right? As a consumer, if I text you a lead in, or you know I want to communicate that way, if you're using one of the products that has like text this to your landline, text this to your whatever it is on a car, right? That means I want to text with you. So that's how you need to communicate with me, right? If you don't have a process in place inside of your CRM, that doesn't work, right? If you've got a salesperson or 5 salespeople, a manager, a BDC that are handling incoming leads that are coming in, and you don't have them segmented by source so that a process is set up, not only are you not legal, but you're not going to get a call to action out of it, and they're not going to engage with you, okay? All right, sales floor training, yes. I will take a Facebook Live question. Oh, that's a good question. Because I'm a consultant, if I answer that during this, it's considered pitching, even though I don't take kickbacks. So Johnny, I will get back to you, but what I will say is there are a couple really great products on the market. Not to promote one company over another, but I used CarCodes SMS, which Edmunds bought a couple years ago. I used that before Edmunds bought it from the guy who was the startup and built it, and it was phenomenal. Right? The thing that I loved about it was not only that it was legal, but that there was an app that came with it that you downloaded onto your cell phone. So if a salesperson wanted to text back, they could go on their phone and feel like they were texting, which I'm telling you is about 80% of the problem in most stores is that the salesperson, sales manager, whomever, I'm not trying to pick on salespeople, I sell cars too, but that's the person that wants to be able to text. So if there's an app on your phone that you can log into and text from, then all parties feel like they're communicating the way they want to. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's a big deal. It's a really good question. Termination policy. Get it signed, get it on file, and be willing to fire somebody who puts your family at risk. Don't sit inside of your business and say things like, well, they deliver 30 cars a month, so I can't afford to lose them. You can't afford to keep them. If you walk into a store and you say, into your own store, onto your own team, and you say, we do not text, it exposes our business, and you catch them texting, you damn well should fire them. I'm not gonna call you weak, but I'm gonna tell you you're not holding yourself or your people accountable. Because you're risking not only your business, but you're risking the jobs of everybody in your store. Every single salesperson, not just the 30 car a month guy, every single porter, every single service tech, every one of them, it's being risked with. There's only one other person in the industry that talks about this, and it's Scott. And he covers the same thing. I know Auto Bytel has a couple different things working with the product as well that's worth taking a look at. But for me, I think it's more of an accountability thing. And I work with dealers every single day. Like, I can talk to you about this for 45 minutes, and you could be saying in your head right now, like, I got it. I get it. I got to have a double opt-in. But it's been out there for years. And if you don't have a policy in the store now and you don't go back and set one up, you're setting yourself up for exposure. Don't think that if you're a small store, you're covered, right? Don't be the person that's like, well, like, we're in rural Kansas, right? We got like 120 cars that we deliver a month. Like, nobody's coming after us. Yes, they are coming after you. And you're the one that can't afford to lose it. Lithia can lose $250 million. They're gonna be okay. If you lose $1 million in your store next month and it hits your financial statement, are you still open for business? Because it's likely that you're not. And it doesn't matter if what you did was wrong or if what you did was right. Perception is what does it for you, right? So you have to opt in that way. Can I get a time check real quick? Can anybody check the time? Who's got a watch on? Raise your hand if you're wearing a watch. Nice, baby boomers. That's a thing. If it's an Apple Watch, that's different. I learned last week, though, I learned the hard way recently that your text messages from your phone copy to your Apple Watch, and when you delete them from your phone, they don't delete from the watch. You do what you want with that information. I'm newly single, so I'm learning all kinds of things these days. But just maybe keep an eye on that if you raised your hand just then. Does anybody have any questions on how that works? Does anybody have any questions on what you need to have written in your policy that you're going to send out? Because I know you're all going to send one out when you get back, right? Everybody's putting that in writing? That's going to be a thing? All right, I like it. Yes. No, so an opt-in disclosure on a website actually requires two. So you've got to have, if somebody fills out an opt-in form, even if you have all the legal language on there, when you email that customer back or when you text them back, you can text them back and say the language that has to be in there, which is data rates could apply and a cancellation date. When you send that back, they have to come back with a positive response. So you're always having a double pet right there is what's happening, right? Good question. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like we're in the today business, and so we forget that stuff has to be done a certain way, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does he have commercials? He probably does, doesn't he? Yeah, like, can you just see that one? Has a dealer texted you recently? Right, it's a thing. And everybody falls into it too, right? Because we're like, for dealers, we talk about this a lot, but Harvard did this study. I talk about this a lot in sessions. Harvard did this study a couple years ago on heart surgery. And they said, if you go into the doctor and it's an emergency, you go to the emergency room and they say to you, oh my God, we got to take your heart out of your chest. You're like, what are you talking about, right? And they say, you're going to have a triple bypass surgery. On average, a person who goes in for an emergency surgery, so let's say it's Tuesday and my surgery is going to be on Friday. They're going to unzip my chest, take my heart out, massage it, clean some stuff out, put it back. Oh, by the way, you got like a 50% chance of living. They researched that for 3 hours. They researched us for 19 just to buy a car. Just like let that sink in, right? So can you see that commercial from the attorney, right? It'll be like one of those drug side effect things. They'll be like, have you been to a dealership lately? Do you have a rash? You need to call me. That's what happens. I'm not even kidding. It's terrible. But yes, I do. So I'll pull up the Text Garber page. The problem is, and it's a mindset problem that we have. There are so many things that we would not let people get away with, and yet we all know that we shouldn't do this, and we do it. And we justify it inside of stores by saying things like, well, I can't not text a customer. Do you know how many cars I sell off of that? Yeah. Do you know how much risk you're exposing us to? Right? You also shouldn't joyride in our cars. We don't let you do that, right? We're not like, hey, go have a drink. Everybody wants to clink glasses. Take a car. Have fun. That's not a thing. I don't know why we make it acceptable for people to put our businesses at risk and we don't take it seriously. It is this simple that in 5 minutes, I was able to tell you exactly what the law is, right? To an extreme. Double opt-in, create a policy, don't break the law. It's not even that hard, right? But we have to go back and do it, and that's the biggest part of the problem, is the mindset. So textgarber.com is a really good example of a page that has that information on it. It's the group I used to work for like 6 years. And we did spend every day talking to attorneys, and I have spent like 50 hours with extremely expensive ones asking a million questions. And it started 2 years ago before anybody was even willing to talk about it. And we've been talking about it in the industry now for 3 years. And we still don't have those policies in place, right? What about texting marketing or texting conversion or questions for anything in terms of that? Does anybody have any questions on that stuff? Do you know? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a fan of short code, right? Because it's easy for marketing, but for internally in a store, I'm a big believer that you should turn everything into a textable line, and it should start with your phone number. If you don't have your landline as a textable line, you're crazy. Did you know you could do that? Do you know that your phone number to your dealership can accept text if you want it to? That's pretty basic, and if you've been following anything for SEO, then you know that you shouldn't be using 100 different numbers anyways. So if you don't have your landline set up for that, you should. Inside of the CRMs, Vin's a great example of it. We use a local number in there to be able to text to it, right? In terms of an opinion on which one works better than the other, I don't have one. Right. Right, and the law doesn't really distinguish between the two of them now. There's a paragraph in there that talks about the short versus the long, but it's pretty murky in there. Do you know the actual answer to that question? Because I feel like you look like a guy that does. Yeah. Yeah, oh, okay, perfect. Yeah. Right. Right, it's extremely different. Right. And that's the funny thing with this law is nobody knows it well enough. They just had to reestablish the law for emergencies. If you have kids and you've gotten a text from the school when they don't have school or when something's canceled, right? They just had to reestablish this. Consumers Energy actually is who got the last part of the law changed over. Actually, not in 2013, but last year when they released the "this is a murky law" stuff, they were trying to send out warnings of like there's a tornado, your power could go out, and they couldn't because it was illegal because they follow the law. So they weren't able to do that, and that's where this came out to. The hard part with how this law works is because it's so new, and 3 years is pretty new, there hasn't been a dealership sued since then. So whoever goes is going to be the example for it, right? They're going to be able to say whatever they want. Yeah. Love it. No, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Thank you, Patrick. That boy's always making me smile. It's not different if a customer texts you first. People say that all the time too. Well, the customer texted me, so I can text them. That's not how this works, right? It doesn't matter if I text you first. You're still breaking the law. It's like any law that you look at. My daughter, I'll give you a good example. I have a 17-year-old daughter. And last year, she watched somebody start to break and entering into the junior high. Big shocker that my kid would be the one that can't keep her mouth shut and stay out of it, right? But she couldn't. And so instead of leaving it alone, she follows them into the junior high, and it's all on camera, right? She follows them into the junior high, and she's like, you need to get out of this school right now. You're breaking the law. You know what you know how much it cost me for an attorney because she admitted that it was illegal on camera? Like, you're not supposed to be in here. No, neither are you. That's how this works, right? For trying to do the right thing. It's the same thing with texting. You think about how this applies to any portion of your life. It doesn't matter if I send you a message first, and then you respond back to me. The law is that there's a double opt-in. And that minimum of $500 is no joke. If you think about the last text conversation that you had with a customer, it's not gonna be 3 or 4 bubbles. It's gonna be like 37, right? And then you're gonna have the next one the next day where you're like, hey, have you made a decision yet? Hey, did you talk to your wife? Hey, are you stopping in at 2:30? Can I get you a coffee while you're here? All of those little things do not add up to an ROI, they add up to a lost business. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're a pre-existing customer. The best bet is to just follow the law and either use the app, use your CRM, or use common sense. If you don't want to pay for a program for texting, I don't blame you. Don't pay for it. Create a web page like the one I told you about, right? Put that out there. It's free. Any of your website providers will put it up for you. And if they try to charge you, just tell them no, right? You're the dealer. Just say no. Say you can do that. Practice safe texting by doing that. Put it on your website and let it come back. That's fine. Yes. So I researched it for companies that specialize in consumer experience instead of just automotive, because I think that we fail in our industry. I've been in the business for 17 years. I've held every position in a dealership, including the GM of GMs, right? Never one time in any of those things have I seen any of us, myself included, have moments where we always held ourselves accountable for stuff and that we focused on customer service instead of the bottom line. The thing is, if you deliver really good service to somebody, they'll buy from you. There's no trick to it. It's not like people are always like, well, what would you do? I would just try to do what's right for the customer, and that works for me every time. I work by word of mouth only. That's it. And that's why. Right? So you think about customer experience businesses, which is what we should be modeling, not automotive, right? And you think about what their conversion rates are. Emails aren't getting opened anymore because they're getting opened on phones. If you look at your phone right now in your email section, right, that's where we open most of them, especially when there's like a little red dot. We're still thinking about things like subject lines. We're like, what should I put as the subject line? Who cares? You can read the first 140 characters. That's how people decide. It's the same amount as Twitter. There's like 140 to 160 characters on an email, and you decide right then. In a text message, you don't communicate the same way. We all want to be so full of grammar and formal. And don't get me wrong, I'm all about like a you, your, you kind of thing being the right way. I'm impatient though, so I'm a quick texter. Most of the time, autocorrect is not my friend, okay? But because we do that, because we say things in our stores and because we communicate with things like that, we always want to put everything into a full sentence. You don't even read the whole sentence. Get off that kick with the grammar. I'm not saying send a smiley face emoji, okay? But mirror your customers. That's how I learned how to sell cars. That's how I learned how to sell things, period, is to mirror my customers' body language and behavior and to do what they do. So if you send me a smiley face, guess what? I'm sending one back. That's how this is gonna go. And you're gonna like it, I promise, it's fine. But if you're really serious with me, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah. Yes. That's illegal. I'd have to look at their whole policy to tell you if every part of it is illegal, because I'm not that familiar with the company, and I would hate to say that and have it not be true, but if there's not an opt-in, that's not true. There's one company on the market right now that I'm aware of that's a startup. Their policies are a little different in that they registered as a phone company. They don't have to follow the same laws. I'm not suggesting you believe that or that you do that. I'm saying always do what's the right thing, right? But that's not on there. It's the same thing with if you're working with any companies who give you the 5-digit code to stick on the car, on the window, right? And they're like, we're gonna get you 1 million leads. Yeah, you are, because people wanna text. But if you send in a text, if I'm that customer and I'm on your lot on a Saturday and I send in the text to get more details on the car, and that's exactly how it's marketed, right? Get the VDP on this car by texting in. And then on Monday I start blowing you up on the phone and sending you 100 emails, you're not gonna convert. You're gonna be annoyed, right? I need to be able to text with that customer. So what if we did one simple thing? What if on the car, instead of putting text 45321 to get this, we said, just tell the truth, right? Real simple. It's illegal for us to text you. If you want us to text you this information, we'd love to. Just text the word yes to blah, blah, blah. If it's in your CRM, it'll match up. That's the thing that we miss in our business a lot, especially when it comes to stuff like this, is just telling the truth. We're so busy looking for workarounds that we forget that sometimes honesty really is the best policy. Like you just tell somebody, I can't text you, right? But if you want, I'm more than happy to look at that for you and look at it with you, and we could look at it together, and I'll give you the answer, a true answer. I'll look through it for you, for sure. Any other questions? What needs a single opt-in? So technically, you can do texting through your phone with a single opt-in as long as you're not upselling the customer. So if it's to communicate something in the store, so as a salesperson, for example, if I'm communicating with you that there's a second delivery, right? Like I need something for finance. We signed the wrong contract. We signed you at the wrong rate. I forgot to get your proof of income, swear to God, I got that form signed. If they're coming back in, you technically could talk to them that way. But as a best practice, that's difficult to say to a whole store, like, this situation and this one follow this, and this one follow this. It's best to just do it as an overall so that you don't experience that, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So best practice in a store, I would make that the same opt-in for everybody. And look, somebody might have to be an example, and you might be surprised that you're the one breaking the law, right? You're the one doing it, or your sales manager is the one doing it. Typically, people just don't know what they don't know. Your salespeople aren't out there on your floor, or your BDC agents aren't out there on your floor going, I want to put you out of business. I mean, they're just trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're like, people communicate with me this way. Why would I stop doing that? You owe them. You owe them. You should love them enough to hold your teams accountable and say, I will not only support that that is the highest converting thing, I will not only encourage for you to do it, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to do it right, because I want you to still work here. I want you to be a part of my team, but this is illegal, and so I'm going to give you a way to do it that makes sense, right? You got to love your people enough to hold them accountable. And you got to love yourself enough to hold yourself accountable too, right? We can't keep putting businesses at risk and having conversations with customers because we feel like it or because we think we should. It's the biggest shit show when people say to me in a store, and I'm not known for sugarcoating things. Usually my sessions are super fun and really hyped, but I've watched almost 4 of my clients this year almost get sued for this and get sued huge, which is why instead of coming in today and doing like a really fun thing, so I'm not always this serious, just so you know if you want to come to another session, I swear to God it's funny. But this is a big deal, and I'm watching it happen over and over and over again. And I attend every conference as a speaker, and I have sat through every single texting session, and there is only one person that talks about it. And it blows my mind. It's such a huge litigation to have just sitting in front of you as an opportunity for improvement and to not take it, right? That's huge. Any other questions? Time? Nice work, lady. So if you have any questions on that or you want to talk about it, after you leave here, I'm telling you right now, this is one of those subjects where you're thinking like, that's simple, I got this, I just got to go back and do it. It sounds like it's simple right now. It's not going to be that simple when you go back. So if you have a question when you go back, you're welcome to call me. I promise not to pitch you on anything. I have a dealer-to-dealer commitment. I did not get to stand in front of rooms like this and learn these things by being somebody who pitched people all the time. I got here because dealers like you helped me when I was learning things, which is why I share that knowledge back. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'll do this drawing right quick. And Miss Mayberry in the front has a session on, when's her session? Thursday? Hers is going to be fun. Hers is about CRMs and how they're home wreckers. And the slides back it. It's going to be hilarious. I wouldn't miss that one. All right. So let's figure out these Snapchat spectacles. Speaking of Snapchat spectacles, do any of you use Snapchat for your business right now? You do? There's not a double opt-in for Snapchat, and your customers love to give you that. So keep that in mind, right? I use Snapchat for a ton of people. All right. Catherine Lemoyne. Did I pronounce that right? I did. Oh, is it you? Oh, good. That's fun. So these spectacles are super fun. We use them a ton in business. I got them for this class because I wanted a pair, and the only way to expense it was if I needed them for a gift. So here you go. You're very welcome. I promise not to do anything crazy with all your cards that are in here, but, Oh, yeah. I'm trying to do a little bit more for my dealers in that I would tell you that you should do video testimonials for your business. You should get people to say things about why they enjoy what you said or what they take away from them. And I'm a person who believes in practicing what I preach. So after the session, if you have any questions, I'll be available to chat with you. But if you would, not mind, I'd like for you to do a Snapchat testimonial. You don't all have to do it. Obviously, we don't have time for that. But if you're willing to, if you think you took something from the hour of time that you gave me and that I gave you, do me a favor. I don't name my clients publicly, so I'm not allowed to get testimonials from them. It's all exclusive and stuff like that. So if you would do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And then the last thing is, Ashley, will you turn the camera around for a minute? Today is my son's 14th birthday, and I'm missing it to be here with you guys. So if you could just, on the count of 3 for me, say happy birthday, he'll think that's really cool. He thinks I'm weird and that people don't like me because I'm his mom, right? His name is Keegan, right? So just on the count of 3, if I could get like a happy birthday, Keegan, from everybody. So 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Keegan! All right, now say that you think I'm funnier than his dad. Seriously. Thank you so much. I am going to be going around making people say this because I'm making it into a clip for my kids. their dad and I were together for 17 years and they think he's funnier. He's not. I am. Sometimes. Most of the time he's funnier, but if you guys will just say it all the time, that'd be great. All right, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Thank you.